Okay, and I will pass it off to the first name listed, Malcolm.
See. Next time I write Mark's name first. No. So we're gonna talk about how to prevent an overdose, and this kind of portion of the training is specifically for friends and families. So overdose prevention is simple. I think everybody and their mother, like we say, should carry Narcan with them, or naloxone, or whatever form of medication. And Mark will tell you a little bit more about that, because everybody can play a role in preventing an overdose, whether you are walking in the street and see somebody that might need it, or is a friend or a family member. Everybody could just do something to prevent an overdose. And use naloxone. Naloxone is a very effective tool, and it has been reported to be effective in reducing that mortality rate. Oh, I can't speak. Between 75 and 100%. And those numbers are very, very high. So if you have naloxone with you, you know that you have the opportunity of saving somebody's life, period. There's no questions about that. You have that antidote to help somebody's life.
What are opioids? What drugs are opioids? So we have the poppy plant, right? Everybody knows that heroin is part of that whole family. We have opium, morphine, and codeine. And then we have the synthetics and semi-synthetics that a lot of times are, seen in hospitals, or you're prescribed that. Percocets, Oxycontin, oxycodone, hydrocodone, Vicodin, Demerol, fentanyl. Fentanyl is the big one that everybody always talks about over the last decade, basically. Well, maybe not a decade. Well, yeah, about that now, right? So these are all things that bottom list your doctor will probably prescribe you. You may get prescribed Tylenol with codeine, but these are all good things. Heroin actually was something that you could buy years and years and years ago. It was made, I believe it was made by the Bear Company at one time, or sold by the Bear Company at one time. So these all have actual uses that are good for us until they are used in a way that I don't know if misusing is even a good word or whatever, but they can become problematic.
They become problematic in different ways, right? The opioids bind to a specific receptor on the brain, and it affects your brain, your spinal cord, and other areas of the body, and it's reducing pain. So I've heard people say the first time I tried opioids, it was heaven, because now I'm not in pain anymore. Like Mark said, opiates have come into our society in a time in which people have suffered from pain and have done very well with it. However, what happens with that is overuse and continued use affect your receptors in your brain in such a way that it alternates your relaxation and your euphoria. Now, those things don't act normally, and only act if you use this drug, right? And so your brain and your body is confused around it. What happens is that at times, if you use high doses, then your body forgets to breathe. So you're so relaxed that your body forgets to breathe. And that's when you affecting your brain stream and your blood oxygenation, and you could lead into an overdose. We become tolerant. People become tolerant to repeated use of opioids. And until a certain time, the opioids became something that you needed more and more and more of. So now there's not enough to have the 3 times a day option, but your body needed more because the other effects are coming with. So that's where the withdrawals and all the other symptoms come on board when you don't have the drug with you. And in our market right now, the opiates are there, and it has caused damage to our communities and the people that are drug dependent. But other drugs have made it even worse. And that's your xylazine, and that's the nitazines, and the methamphetamine, or whatever those names are that I can never pronounce. But there's other drugs there's other chemicals that are in our drug and our street drug supplies that affects how the regular opiate that we used to talk about affects our bodies. Anything else, Mike, that I might have forgotten?
No, I think you got it there. All right. So there are 2 different things here, right? We're here to talk about opioid overdose. However, there is such a thing as just being really, really high. And when that happens, some people can just look like they're sleepy. or sleeping even. But when you say, hey, they wake right up. And they'll look at you and say, what? You may have some slowed speech, but they're coherent and they understand what they're saying. They may even be talking back to you, having a conversation, but they're slurring their words, kind of like alcohol. Once somebody gets starting that nice little buzz going, then all of a sudden their mouth starts to not move as quickly as they think it is. Normal breathing patterns, maybe a little bit slower, but you're still alert. You're still doing okay. You're just really high. And then we have the signs of an opioid overdose. Usually that means that someone is completely unresponsive. You try to yell out, hey, Billy, wake up, and nothing's happening. You give them a sternum rub on the chest, they don't wake up, which if you do it right with your knuckles, that's going to wake some people up. Or I even put my finger right up underneath somebody's, the little bridge of their nose right there, or not the bridge, the base of their nose, and push up. And when you do that, that hurts a lot too. So that'll give you, you'll wake up from that. And if you don't, could be an overdose. Breathing is super duper slow, very shallow, could even have stopped completely. Some folks make those gurgling sounds like the death rattle that they always talk about, or it might just sound like somebody snoring. And when you hear the gurgle and the snore kind of together, it makes it really, I'm not going to do it, but it makes a really weird noise that pretty much you'll know it when you hear it that, oh, we have trouble here. Folks can have blue fingernails, gray lips, blue. I'm with you, Magda, with the tongue-tied stuff. Blue or gray lips. Your fingernails could be blue, fingertips. Every person that I've encountered just about that has been in an active overdose. Their lips were either grayish or blue, and usually they were, they start to drool as well. Could even get a little foaming at the mouth type of thing. And if you feel their hands or anything, they're clammy. They look very pale. It's a pretty distinctive thing in my mind because I've reversed at least 60 overdoses in my lifetime, and I stopped counting somewhere after that. So every single time that we've encountered it, it's been something that it when you see it.
I talk about an overdose as a medical emergency. When I talk to people, when I teach CPR to people, that includes an overdose training, I talk about it as a medical emergency. So all those symptoms is a medical emergency symptoms. So what is naloxone is that one prescription or that one medication that will help revert the overdose. And that has a time limit. So what it does is the opioid will have brain receptors, and the brain receptors help connect our brain to the rest of our body. Opiates come in the system, take over, right? Take over because they absorb pain. They're going to numb your body and just help you through some painful situations. When you take too much of it, that receptor is covered, right? It doesn't feel anything else. So it doesn't even feel you or give you the want or the need, the innate need for breathing. And that's what happens. And the overdose happens when somebody doesn't breathe. So what it does is that it displaces temporarily the opiate from the receptor. And it's temporarily because it only lasts in somebody's body between 30 and 90 minutes. So I think 45. Sometimes once you apply the naloxone and it comes like this, in a little bubble packet like that, when you apply that, the person could come back. If it's only opiates in their system, they'll come back. If it's opiates with something else, like maybe xylazine and some other stuff, they might not come back. So what we're looking for is for that person to start breathing, not to get up and talk to you, not to run around and do whatever. No, we want our loved one, the person that we're providing with Narcan to start breathing. And it typically works between 2 to 3 minutes. We have to wait before we provide an overdose. Mark?
Those could be the longest 2 minutes of your life, especially if it's somebody that you're very close to, or even if it's not. Looking at your watch and going tick, 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 and that's a very long time. On this slide over on the left is Narcan, as Magda showed you. I have the same thing, and that is what we in Hampden County, Hampshire County, the vast majority of the country really uses Narcan. Over here on the right, we have Revive, which is also, that's a 3 milligram naloxone, which is perfectly fine to use as well. They will induce withdrawal because of the situation that's happening. However, it shouldn't be, like Magda said, should be no more than 90 minutes. There are medications out there now, Cloxato and Opti. We try not to use those. Those are not really harm reducing. I think they're harm inducing more than anything else because they can put people into withdrawal for upwards of 10 to 12 hours. And that's excruciating. These items right here are proven, evidence-based, they work. We know this. So we continue to use these preferably.
Naloxone, what it does is like I said before, it's temporarily reverse the effects of an overdose by blocking the receptors. They're the few that we spoke about, the one that comes like this, which is the easier one. The easiest one, the fastest to locate. Every harm reduction office in our area will have some. There's naloxone boxes outside different places in Western Mass and maybe throughout Massachusetts that have Narcan that is free and available to anyone that stop by and pick it up. This is not something that you have to pay for. We have a standing order that is provided by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health that all pharmacies will have Narcan or naloxone and can sell it to you over the counter. Okay, so all these things are available because we want to decrease the number of people. We saw how effective is it, right? Between 75 and 100% of reduction of overdoses. And so how to administer? Easy. Pull it, open it, take it out. Find the nostril, apply. That's it. Up and apply. Then wait 2 to 3 minutes, the longest 2 to 3 minutes, and use it again if you need to. In the meantime, we think about all these steps. Mark, you want to take this? And then
So whenever we encounter somebody who may be having an overdose, again, they could just be really, really high. So we always try to wake them up. We always try to, shake and shout, do the sternum rub if we need to. If they don't wake up, what I like to do automatically, if I'm by myself, I grab my phone, I call 911. As I'm doing that, I'm popping the Narcan out of the packet. I am getting on my knees and wherever the person might be, I put one right up the nostril, push the plunger, and there we go. Now, as Magda said earlier, there might be xylazine in the drug supply, which most of the time there is around here. And also we have medetomidine that is in the supply as well. So those are tranquilizers. They are not opioids. They will not be, naloxone will not bring somebody back just because of that. They're not an opioid. So rescue breathing becomes imperative at that point. You want to do one breath every 5 seconds. A lot of people don't want to do that. So you can have a mouth barrier on your keychain or something like that. It's fantastic. I've seen people lift their shirt up and put their mouth on people. It's all about saving the life. And again, as Magda said earlier, we don't need conversation. We need respirations. Real quick, I had gone out to the Overdose Prevention Center on Point in East Harlem, New York last January, meeting with my friend Sam, who runs the place. He was telling me how the vast majority of overdoses that they encounter, they don't bring people back with Narcan. They bring people back with oxygen just to get the breathing going. So that is almost vital nowadays. And again, should you need it after 2 or 3 minutes, administer another dose. Use the other nostril and do that. If you can, you stay until EMS arrives. And if you cannot, then please put the person in the recovery position, which is basically on their side with their arm under their head like this. So in case they do start to vomit, then it's not going back down their throat.
Questions that people may have about naloxone. One of them is, you can use it for anyone. Anyone could benefit from using naloxone. It cannot be abused. So it's not like, I'm going to do this because I know this naloxone's there for me. So you can't steal it. It's been given to you. Just use it. Too much naloxone, though, could bring people to precipitated withdrawals. And that's the thing that we want to avoid. Because what happens is this: a person you provide too much naloxone. Okay, so we know that opiates last in the system a certain amount of time. Usually what happens is the person that's using feel the uncomfort of becoming, the edginess, the sweatiness, the edginess to use again. This is not progressively. Maybe one symptom, the next symptom. But when you provide Narcan, now all of them come at the same time. It's just a punch of all these things. There's nausea, you have the chills, you run to the bathroom, you feel like you're going to die in that moment. So that person is going to run out trying to get more because they need it. This is imperative for their health at that moment. So if somebody have provided too much Narcan and this person leaves, is talking to you, leaves, what are they going to do? They're going to try to use again If they use again and the Narcan only lasts 30 to 90 minutes, it's extremely dangerous for someone. So it's imperative, I'd say, to somebody that's rescuing somebody else to go slow, to make sure that the person is breathing, that person doesn't have to talk to you back, is only starting to breathe, because we want life, and life is breath. So it's important to administer as much as is needed and just bring the person back to breathing and monitor. Just stay there, stay with them. If you can't stay with them, hopefully here in our area, our first responder seem to be responding pretty quickly, not like they used to. And we talk about a medical emergency. I always talk about it as a medical emergency.
This is my personal favorite. What we say when somebody, we call it wakes up, but basically when they come back to life. I've seen many instances where people have administered Narcan on folks, and as soon as they start to stir, they get in their face, they yell at them, they say, do you know what you just did? What's good, and that's not what we want. People don't have any idea what just happened. They don't know where you are, where they are. They may not even know who you are. So what we like to do is basically realize that when you come back from an overdose, it can be a traumatic experience. It can be very confusing. So let's give people a little bit of space. Tell them something like, welcome back. If you do know them, you can say, hey, Jim, I just gave you naloxone. I'm sorry that you're not going to feel good, but sit up when you're ready. You're safe with me. I'm glad you're here. I got you. Anything like that. The last thing that we want to be doing is arguing, yelling, screaming at them. And, if it's a family member, I can understand that there might be some panic involved, but we want to try and get people to be like, okay, you're safe. You're not going to feel good here, but you're safe. Us folks in the harm reduction community like to call it a compassionate comeback, just for the simple fact that you're being as gentle as possible. We don't need to judge or shame people after something happens. We just want to just be glad that they're alive. And then this last slide over here on the right is one of my favorites. When we're gentle with others, we can also learn to be more gentle with ourselves, which I think is absolutely spot on when it comes to this.
No CPR. If you could have this skill, please do so. I think CPR is one of those skills that everybody should know, because it helps for you, it helps for your loved one. And, I'm not going to go through the whole thing about CPR, but just find the video, do hands only, do whatever it is that you need, but just get informed about how to save yourself and save somebody else. We usually have the whole idea or the whole thought that we all know what to do, but we don't. So having this conversation is, I'm going to leave the slides with you so you could do as you need to with them. But everybody knows what to do, but we don't. When we have dealing with an emergency, everybody panics. So having a conversation about what needs to happen at our home, where things are located, and how are we going to use naloxone, for example, who's going to call 911 if an emergency happens, and where's an emergency contact information. Some of these things are important to just talk them out, not just have the expectation that because we had this one conversation around that everybody's going to know what to do. We are protected by the Good Samaritan law in Massachusetts and many other states. I think there's 40 states. I was surprised. I thought it was more. And so some of the things that is not protecting off is if of those that have active warrants, of those that are possession of weapons, if there's large amounts of drugs, and if there are children involved. What the extent of all the things happening, I don't know. Just know that this is what we face, right, in a day-to-day basis. And hopefully not because of all of this, you stay away from saving your person. I said to people, you know what, if it happens in your apartment and you're concerned, let's pull them to the hallway. Sorry, I didn't say that. But I just want to save a life. Mark, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's just part of reality. That stuff happens, and it's better to, have someone and stay there and be like, oh, I was just coming down the hall.
Additional resources. I left this there because this is the National Opioid Safety and Naloxone listserv. Tells you where to find Narcan that are free. And then it's important for people to have the never use alone line or the safe spot, because as much as I would say to my people, as much as we don't want our loved ones to use, the reality is different. So to having an option, most people who die from an overdose die alone. So having a phone call, a call on the other side, a person on the other side of the line speaking to you or being aware of what's going on with you is helpful in many, many ways. So just have that.
Oh,
And here's
Thank you
our
so
on
much.
there. My email's not on there. Oh, darn.
Oh, sorry, I'm going to type it out. Wait.
Well, thank you both so much for going through the presentation. And if you had a quick second, I know we're bumping up against time, but if I could open it up to the audience for any questions or to clarifying points or anything like that, now will be the time for anybody to ask. So anybody in the audience, if you had a question, please, now's the time.
I wouldn't say I had a question. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut anyone off. I was just going to say, in my experience, I know many people describe what it is like to have an addiction and need to fill that urge. And one of kind of like your chocolate story, one of the things that I had someone who was a patient for me a long time ago say was, if I were to put you underwater and make you hold your breath, that feeling that you get when you come to the surface, that the only thing you can think about is, and taking in that breath is that same urge that someone who is as sick as humanly possible feels when they are having to go without that substance. That life or death, I can't live without that oxygen, that's how they would describe it. So when you combat someone who is coming at you with a little bit of stigma and saying, why can't they just stop? Well, if you were underwater and I told you, you just can't ever breathe again, how would you feel there? That's just my example.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much to everyone who was shared today. I really appreciate our speakers today. I really appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. I just want to reiterate before we leave, as a nonprofit organization who's dedicated to empowering communities through legal advocacy, health initiatives, and education, we aim to break down systematic barriers and provide tools for individuals like this to achieve justice, equity, and opportunity. So once again, the Just Us movement is so thankful for everyone participating today and to be here. Please follow us on all our social medias. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, X. So give us a follow, keep up with the things that we post. We're excited for, ongoing conversations like this. Hopefully I can get these two back so we can continue our conversation because we had so much that we didn't cover. But just once again, thank you guys so much.
And one quick plug, I do want to say that I did drop a link in the chat to a post-webinar survey. Please let us know what you thought about this event, and we hope to see you again for future ones. Thank you all so much.
Keep up the good work,
All right,
guys. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Right.
All right. Have a good one, everybody.
Take care.
Bye.